Welcome to our uh, presentation on alcohol. We're going to talk a little bit about background, trends, and prevention strategies. We're going to get started since it's already 6:10. Is that the right time or am I off again
No, you're
with the
right.
time? Okay, so it is this webinar is being recorded, so we can always we're going to put it on our YouTube page, and others can also view it in the future. So I think we should just get started. And yes, so thank you for joining us, Gary. um, this is our presentation for the West Orange High School community. And we are going to start off by talking a little bit. It's just a presentation outline. We're going to talk about who we are, what we do. Then we're going to get into background information and current trends on alcohol, as well as the impact COVID-19 has had on youth. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some prevention strategies parents can do to minimize underage drinking. And then we can have a question and answer session. Okay. All right. So my name is Jessica Delgado. I am a coordinator at the Family Connections at ADAPT Coalition. And I have here co-presenting with me, Emmeline Falcone, and I'll have her introduce herself right now.
Hi, Gary. Nice to have you here with us tonight. And for everyone listening, my name is Emmeline Falcon. I am the ADAPT Youth Prevention Specialist.
Okay. And at ADAPT, we work together on various initiatives. We work with the youth, our youth group on tobacco and vaping prevention, as well as do other presentations in the community, and work with our interfaith community as well. Okay. So who are we? The ADAPT Coalition is a group of youth and adult volunteers. We are dedicated to preventing and reducing underage drinking and substance use disorder throughout Essex County. We empower youth leaders and community members and collaborate with community partners to improve education and awareness while also advocating for local and county-wide programmatic and policy changes.
So, our funding sources. We're funded through various grants from the New Jersey Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services and the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. We're managed by Family Connections. Since 1879, Family Connections has proven that communities thrive when everyone is invested in each other's well being. When you can connect with us, you're building a stronger, safer, and healthy New Jersey.
So we focus on three specific substances: underage drinking, prescription drug abuse, and tobacco and vaping use among youth. We work on decreasing youth access to alcohol and other drugs, and also working on policy, practice, and programmatic changes. We educate youth and adults on the consequences of using alcohol and other drugs and tobacco. And we follow the 7 strategies for community change to implement different projects, initiatives in the community to spread this awareness and to reduce the use of substances.
So, our coalition committees were separated into 4 committees that focus on different initiatives. One of them being underage drinking, which we focus on planning and implementing underage drinking prevention initiatives like the sticker shock campaigns, mandatory responsible beverage training ordinance, and environmental scans. We have the prescription drugs, which is focused on planning and implementing prescription drug abuse misuse prevention initiatives. We have the interfaith, which is focused on implementing initiatives that expands substance use prevention programs within faith-based communities. And lastly, our LGBTQ plus, which is focused on implementing initiatives that expand substance use prevention programming within the LGBTQ community.
And we do this using the strategic prevention framework, in which we first assess and collect data to define problems and readiness within an area to address the needs and gaps. Then we work on building capacity, mobilizing and building partnerships within within the area that we are working in. Next, we come up with a comprehensive strategic plan, and then we implement it with evidence-based prevention programs and policies and practices. Eventually, we evaluate and we measure the impact on these programs and policies. And we always work through being culturally competent, working with various members of diverse populations. And last but not least, we work always to achieve and maintain long-term results and sustainability for community change in the long term.
So now we're going to get into the background information and current trends of alcohol. So our first poll question, Gary, you can put your answer in the chat. What is the economic cost of excessive alcohol use in the United States? A, 45 billion, B, 14 million, C, 2.6 million, and D, 249 billion. And we'll give you a minute to put your guess in the chat.
So if you guess this correctly, you may get a prize.
45 billion is Gary's.
Okay.
So
Let's see what the answer is.
The answer is the answer is 249 billion is the economic cost of excessive alcohol use in the US. 28 billion in healthcare and 170 billion in workplace productivity, 13 billion in collisions, and 25 billion in criminal justice.
Did that number surprise you, Gary?
Yeah, did you think it was too high?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, often with a quiz like that, I think there's no way it can be the extreme. It can't be that high. But yeah, that's very surprising.
Yeah, when we saw these figures, we were also really surprised as well when you think about not just the immediate effect, but the overall effect, right? That this substance has placed on our economics. Okay. All right, so poll number 2. How many people do you think die from alcohol-related causes each year in the United States? Is it A, 20,000, B, 95,000, C, 45,000, or D, 1 million? Okay, and Gary says it's 95,000. Let's see if you are correct.
You are.
And you are correct.
Ding,
Good
ding,
job.
ding.
Yay.
I almost went with the million. I almost learned my lesson from the last one.
So more than 95,000 people die from alcohol-related causes each year. Alcohol is the third leading preventable cause of death in the United States. There's approximately 261 deaths per day. 70% of these deaths are male, and 80% are ages 35 and older. And there was a statistics there that showed how that lives are shortened by an average of 29 years due to alcohol-related causes.
So poll 3, does the age when a person starts drinking alcohol affect them in the long term? Yes or no? What do you think?
Oh, Gary wrote yes. Okay. I almost didn't see it under the 95,000.
Yes, you're right, Gary. You're right. So alcohol in the developing brain. Alcohol is a mostly wide consumed drug for both adults and youth. Alcohol is a drug that is a depressant. The brain develops until the age of 25. Alcohol causes damage to the developing brain and may lead to permanent brain damage and addiction. The younger a person starts to drink alcohol, the higher risk for alcohol dependency as an adult. So as you can see in the picture, it goes by how many drinks a person consumes, which part of the brain gets affected. So if it's only 1 or 2 drinks, just your memory. And then as it goes, if you do 5 or 6 is your movement, and then 9 or 10 is your vision. And if you have more than 10 drinks, then it inhibits your coordination. That's when people start to fall and tumble and certain things like that.
These stats and graphics are fabulous, by the way. This is really good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. So how does alcohol specifically affect the developing brain, right? First of all, the frontal lobes are affected. This is the part of the brain where you can make good decisions. It's the part of the brain that controls impulses and emotions, and also responsible for planning, forming ideas, and making decisions. Next, we have our learning and memory regions of the brain, right? The hippocampus. The drinking alcohol can also permanently damage this area, which will alter their ability, children's ability to learn and remember, right? And this will affect their academic and future career options, and so forth. All of the damage that alcohol can do to a developing brain underage drinking harms memory the most. In addition, the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and the spinal cord, alcohol also slows down this system, delaying a person's response to stimuli, even in emergency situations. So they may not be able to react as needed and put themselves in precarious situation. Alcohol impairs the hypothalamus, and this is the part of the brain that controls the most basic and important body functions, such as our blood pressure, our body temperature, and our heart rate, right? These are the things that we need to function at the very basic. And last but not least, it affects our senses, our cerebellum. Um, it, uh, this is the place where our body relies on for awareness and coordination. After drinking too much, a person, can put themselves in dangerous situations. They can fall down, they can get into an accident, right? So there's so many situations where your senses, the reaction time is much slower and can impact in the short term as well. Okay, next.
So the brain comparisons of a teen non-drinker and a teen heavy drinker, as you can see, a 15-year-old male non-drinker and a 15-year-old male heavy drinker. The brain activity while performing a memory test. Heavy drinker is sober during this test. It still affects the brain even when they are sober because although the heavy drinking that they've done has affected the what is how the brain is changing. As you can see in the picture, it looks smaller and a bit deformed, and on the other side of a non-drinker it's bigger. So the brain images show how alcohol may harm teen mental function, and it's
Right.
compared with a 15-old non-drinker. A 15-year-old with an alcohol problem showed poor brain activity during a memory test. This finding is noted by the lack of pink and red coloring.
Right. So, a person, a youth that's been drinking a lot is going to have more difficulty remembering. That's what we talked about in the last slide, remembering, retaining memory, and be able to function, even when they're sober. And this is when both brains are sober. So it's still affected even after, not using alcohol, but they're chronically have been using alcohol. Mm-hmm. So this little picture here shows about the earlier the use and the connection with alcohol dependence for our youth, right? The younger youth start consuming alcohol, the more likely the increased risk for them to become dependent to alcohol as they grow older. Chronic exposure to alcohol produces changes, permanent changes to the prefrontal cortex, and this contributes to the development and maintenance of alcohol use disorder. Um, Also, there's a large body of literature that suggests that stress hormones play a critical role in this process. Now, this brain is basically showing how at the age of 5, we have a lot less gray matter, and as the person grows older, this is up to age 20, you see there's more the purple matter, the gray matter increases. And why is that important? Gray matter is a part of the brain that correlates positively with various abilities and skills. So basically, the more gray matter that you have, um, the higher the functioning that you will be, the stronger and healthier lifestyle you will have. So this shows how you introducing alcohol at such an early age will change the amount of gray matter that is formed and will impair their functioning in the future.
So, like just mentioned, research from the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism has shown that people who use alcohol before the age of 15 are 6 times more likely to become alcohol dependent than adults who begin drinking at age 21. Evidence suggests that alcohol's effect on memory and learning are much more severe in adolescents than in adults, according to the article Alcohol's Effect on the Adolescent Brain.
So I think by now we've I hope we've shown you how the importance of delaying the use of alcohol as much as possible, even if it's, every year that you can delay it, it decreases the chance for alcohol dependency as they grow older. And, even though we said that the brain is still developing up to age 25, there's new research that we're just learning about now that there suggests that the brain continues to develop even through the age of 27. So, the later that youth start using it, the better it is for them in the long term. Okay. Okay, so poll number 4. Okay, so which alcoholic beverage do you think from this picture contains the most alcohol? Is it A, the 12 ounces of beer? Is it B, the 8 ounces of malt liquor? Is it C, the 5 ounces of wine? Or D, 1.5 ounces of a distilled spirit such as vodka, whiskey, gin, rum? You can type it in the chat box. All right, so Gary said the malt liquor. Okay, let's see if you're right. Okay, well, it doesn't tell you here. All right, so basically, all these beverages contain the same amount of alcohol. So 12 ounces of beer is equivalent to 8 ounces of malt liquor, which is equivalent to 5 ounces of wine, which is equivalent to 1.5 ounces of a distilled spirit. As you see, there's some numbers underneath. The smaller amount of alcohol has a trick question, yes, has a greater percentage of ABV, right? And as you get to beer, it becomes less. So basically, you can drink more of the beer. It has less alcohol, but these servings are considered equivalents of each other. So you can have, 5 beers of 12-ounce beers is the same as having 5-ounce glass of wine, right? As having 5 shots of a distilled spirit. They will all interact in your body and intoxicate you similarly, right? Okay. So going with that, binge drinking is a problem, both for underage drinkers and also adults. And what is binge drinking is, for women, it's 4 drinks within a 2-hour period. So if you drink more than four drinks in a 2-hour period, we consider it binge drinking, which puts you at increased risk of alcohol poisoning and other negative factors. For men, it's 5 drinks within a 2-hour period. After that, it's considered binge drinking. So thinking about the last picture that we saw, if you have 6 beers, right, in less than 2 hours, that's considered binge drinking and puts you at an increased risk of intoxication and impairment to your brain. And eventually you can even become can have alcohol poisoning. Same thing for the woman. After 4 drinks, if you drink 5 drinks or more within those 2-hour periods, it increases those risks. About 90% of alcohol consumed by youth under the age of 21 is in the form of binge drinks. And that's why we like to talk about this piece, because sometimes people say, well, I don't drink every day, or I only drink once in a while, right? But if you are even having one sitting, right, one time that you're drinking so much alcohol, it can put your life at risk, even if it's just that one time, right? And we know that youth, they get together in parties or in college, fraternities or sororities or wherever, they gather. Binge drinking can cause, even if they're not drinking every day or they're not considered having a disorder, this can create a very huge problem.
So the effects of binge drinking. There's vomiting, damage to the brain, memory loss, shakiness, accidents, alcohol poisoning, like just mentioned, affects your mood, can cause anxiety and depression.
Okay, so some statistics on underage drinking. This is the most recent that we have. From 2019, from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, found that amongst high school students in the past 30 days. 29% drank alcohol. 15% had their first alcoholic drink before the age of 13. And remember, we talked about the younger that they are, the more their brains are being affected, right? So that's something concerning. 14% binge drank. Okay, so that's also another concerning statistic. 41% obtain alcohol by someone giving it to them. So we see this, as an issue as well. 5% of drivers drove after drinking alcohol, and 17% rode with a driver who had been drinking alcohol. So even though rates of current and binge drinking among high school students have been generally declining in recent decades, there's still more work to be done. And, we would love to have these figures at 0%, right? To not have, to have all our youth healthy, right? And going in the right direction. Although males have historically had higher rates, in 2019, female high school students were more likely to drink alcohol and binge drink than male high school students.
So our poll question is select the health risk of alcohol use. Is it A, liver damage, B, kidney failure, C, cancer, or D, injuries?
Carrie knows this by now. You are correct. Yes, it's all of the above.
So health risks of excessive alcohol use. We have short term, we have injuries like auto accidents, falls, drownings, and burns, violence, homicides, suicides, sexual assaults, risky sexual behaviors, pregnancy, STDs, miscarriages, stillbirth, or fetal alcohol spectrum disorders among pregnant women, and alcohol poisoning. Long term, like we mentioned in the poll, we have cancer of the breast, the mouth, the throat, the esophagus, the liver. Weakened immune system. You have learning and memory problems, like we mentioned, mental health problems, social problems like school or family or job. You can suffer from high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, etc.
Okay, so some signs of alcohol poisoning. These are some of the signs that to look for, and that you should really call 911 and not allow the person to just sleep it off. They're vomiting, like projectile vomiting, right? Hypothermia, erratic breathing, being clammy, they're unconscious, they're not responding at all, they're not waking up. They can't speak, they're having trouble speaking, or they're gasping for air, or they're blue. I mean, those are more severe, obviously, signs. Anytime that we're in doubt, we always suggest to call 911 because we never know how much the person has taken and how it's affecting their body. And it's always better to be safe than sorry later on. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
we always like to make a note of this when we speak to youth, just because there's a lot of myths about letting people sleep off, when they're intoxicated or just giving them water. And
Or
sometimes if they're
coffee.
seeing these things, they should call for help. Call 911, like just to be safe. It's better to be safe than sorry, than let them sleep it off and then they never wake up. So New
Okay.
Jersey laws pertaining to alcohol, we have the drug and disorderly charges, driving while intoxicated, driving under the influence. We have providing alcohol to minor law and the Good Samaritan law. Well, our Good Samaritan law, as you can see, is the sticker right there. Don't risk it. You can save a life. Make the call to 911. This is mostly if you for your youth or for adults also. If if you're at a party or someone's in a home and they seem to be under the influence, it could be under drugs or alcohol, and they just don't look well. You should call 911, and the Good Samaritan law protects you from being penalized for if there are drugs in the home or if there's underage youth.
I'm just going to expand a little bit on some of these laws. The reasons why we include the laws is because, even though alcohol is legal, right, there are still laws in the book to protect people, right, and to protect our youth as well. For example, both youth, if youth are buying or consuming alcohol, they can be charged with possession, and it can go on their record. And so they have to be really careful because that could impact scholarships or employment or future aspirations, as well as if an adult is caught selling or giving alcohol to minors, with the exception of parents in the home, they also can be charged as well, right? In addition, we have our are two laws for drinking under the influence and drinking while intoxicated. And there's various fines, you know, depending on it's your first offense, second offense, as well as, and you could even get some jail time with that as well. Some people don't realize that as well. The dram shop law, this law is for retailers or bars or restaurants, anyone who is selling alcohol. They're not supposed to first give obviously alcohol to anyone under 21, but even for adults of legal age, they're supposed to stop serving you if they see that you're visibly intoxicated. Because if you leave that establishment and you get into an accident, or you know, some kind of, you know, any type of accident, the person that the intoxicated person got into an accident with could technically sue the establishment that is selling the alcohol. So there's a lot of like legal implications with this law, and it's basically to make the servers of alcohol, the vendors, the merchants, responsible not for not allowing people to become so intoxicated where they're putting themselves or others at harm. And the social host liability laws are put in place. So if, same thing, if someone is hosting a party or a get together or a dinner party or whatever, and someone leaves their home clearly intoxicated, they get into an accident, the same thing, the person that they get into an accident with could possibly sue the person that is throwing that gathering or that party. Even though it's a private home, they're still liable for the person that left their home in an intoxicated state. And then we already talked about providing alcohol to the minors and the Good Samaritan law. So I just wanted to, you know, explain a little bit that these laws are in place, you know, to protect people from harm, both our youth and our adults. Okay. Poll number 6. What are some warning signs that your teen may be using and abusing alcohol? Is it A, changes in friends? Is it B, mood changes? Is it C, short-term memory loss? Or is it D, rebellion? And if you just joined us recently, thank you and welcome to our webinar on alcohol and prevention. You know, please feel free to put in the chat box your answer to the poll question on the screen. So what are some warning signs that your teen may be using and abusing alcohol? All right, so we've got an answer, all of the above. And Maureen said either mood changes or all of the above. Yes, you're right, it's all of the above. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about some of these warning signs. Okay. Do you want to start, Emily?
Okay, warning signs your child is drinking alcohol. Although the following signs may indicate a problem with alcohol or other drugs, some also reflect normal growing pains. Experts believe that a drinking problem is more likely if you notice several of these signs at the same time, if they occur suddenly, or if some of them are extremely in nature. Mood changes like flares of temper, irritability, and defensiveness, school problems, poor attendance, low grades, and/or recent disciplinary actions, rebellion against family rules.
Okay. Some other warning signs that your child may be drinking alcohol include changes in their friends, switching friends, different group, right? Or a reluctance for you to get to know their new friends. Also, a nothing matters attitude, being sloppy or not being involved in former interests, or just having low energy, kind of just not caring. Another sign is finding alcohol, finding it in their room or in their backpack, or smelling alcohol on their breath. And last but not least, physical or mental problems such as short-term memory loss, poor concentration, bloodshot eyes, lack of coordination, slurred speech, or blackouts.
So why do teens drink alcohol? Many adolescents who participate in underage drinking are unaware of the long-lasting complications that can transpire from alcohol use. Teens may turn to alcohol for various reasons, including peer pressure, wanting to experiment, and have fun. There are also behavioral, physical, and environmental factors that may play a role in the risk of adolescent alcohol abuse.
All right, so adolescents can start drinking for various reasons. but we've kind of categorized them under these four general categories. For example, boredom, they don't have anything to do, and they decide, well, this might be something fun, right? Another, just like another one is escaping reality. Just like adults, teens experience stressful situations, right? And rather than taking part in a hobby, some adolescents may start drinking alcohol. This allows them to unwind from challenges. They start using this as a coping mechanism. It's not a healthy coping mechanism, but it is a coping mechanism. And drinking can offer teens a sense of happiness so that they continue using alcohol to feel okay, right? To feel good about themselves. Another factor is experimenting. Youth are curious, right? And with a lot of alcohol advertisements in the social media, in retail, many teens think that alcohol is acceptable, especially if they're seeing it in their home or with their families. Unfortunately, experimenting with alcohol rarely stops after one occasion. Usually it continues and snowballs until it becomes unmanageable. And last but not least, fitting in during the teen years. Some adolescents may lack some courage, right? Some confidence in fitting in with their peers, so that they think that they need to drink alcohol because everyone else is doing it as well. They just want to fit in. They don't want to stick out. And so drinking can also reduce some social jitters that they may have, and they make it seem like they're confident in front of their peers.
So, drinking alcohol and COVID-19. Drinking alcohol does not protect you from COVID-19. Drinking alcohol weakens your body's ability to fight infections, increasing the risk of complications and making it harder to get better if you are sick. Alcohol use can increase the risk of acute respiratory distress syndrome, lymphoma, which are sometimes associated with COVID 19. One thing you like to know is, during COVID, it's a hard time because, we were all stuck at home. And like just mentioned, youth may have tried to use it as a coping mechanism to deal with the stress. And also, it's important to be mindful that also adults also use sometimes alcohol stress. Just be mindful, like, what are you doing in front of your child? Because, they kind of mirror what we do. So it's important during COVID to also us as adults find, constructive ways to deal with our stress to help our youth know what better ways to deal with it.
So the impact of the pandemic on youth substance use, right? We don't have all the data because we're still in the middle of pandemic, but we know that there has been increased sales of alcohol during the pandemic, and the level of youth substance use during this time is linked to how their families have been impacted, right? Increased stressful situations can lead to substance use, right? And we talked about using it as a coping mechanism when they don't know how else to cope with or manage their stress or their emotions. In addition, alcohol access can be increased during the pandemic. For example, if they have it in their home, they may or may not be supervised, right? If they're older, if their parents have to go out to work, their parents may not be able to watch or see the use of it at home. In addition, restaurants that provide takeout alcoholic beverages, right? They may not be necessarily checking IDs, or it may be difficult to see who's the person taking the food, right? With the masks and everything. And last but not least, liquor stores may not be able to properly check IDs wearing our masks. And so these are all various reasons why we anticipate that alcohol use has increased during this time, in addition to adult use as well, right? Okay.
So now we're going to get into prevention strategies. What can families do to support a substance-free lifestyle? So our poll question is, can parents prevent youth alcohol and substance abuse? Yes or no? Gary
Okay.
says yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the answer is yes. So why are parental figures so important? Parents, guardians, mentors are vital to our overall success of youth. Alcohol and drugs are very accessible to youth from their homes, friends' homes, or local neighborhoods. Majority of both adults and youth have said there is a lack of positive activities for youth. Family involvement is a factor in alcohol and drug use. Family dinner time facilitates greater communication. You display the initial picture of a positive role model they could aspire to become.
So as you see the little picture here, you can just go back for a second, how the home life, right, the school life and the community life, the student is involved in all these different environments, and they intersect here. So each part has an influence on a student's use or starting use of substances. Okay, so it's important to be actively involved, right, to help reduce your youth's access or use first initiation with substances. So research has shown that positive parental guardian involvement decreases adolescent substance abuse. When parents are positive role models, children don't search for other role models that may introduce negative activities, such as drug use. Okay, so what can you do? So, sharing an interest, doing an activity that they like to do, right? Painting, swimming, writing, baking. Here you see a family baking together, showing interest in their activities, right? Asking them how they're doing, how are their friends, what do they like to do, or how's school going, all these different things, showing interest in your child's day to day, and complimenting them, and the importance of, we don't want to, you don't need to praise them all the time, but, you need to see the good stuff that they're doing, right? And not necessarily always just showing when they're not doing the right thing, right? So making the importance of stressing those positivities with your children, teaching your child how to respectfully voice their opinion and letting them do so. So, it doesn't mean just because your child doesn't agree with you, they do need to learn how to do so respectfully, right? And especially in this growing world, and that will give them a better sense of control over their own lives, and it's a healthier outlet for them to do so, rather than not letting them speak or not letting them have opinions about how they're feeling or what they can do, right? So giving them parameters in which, boundaries in which they can explore and do activities and things, but that's under your supervision. And then sharing personal experiences that you may have gone through, to show them that, okay, you're a human person, we've all made mistakes, and that, this is what you learn from making those mistakes. So hopefully by sharing those experiences, your child will be able to learn from those experiences as well.
So, tips to prevent substance abuse. Be the primary and accurate source of information for your children when it comes to drugs and alcohol. Remember, they have the instant ability to fact check you and will lose trust in you if you give false information. Believe us, teens have tried to fact check us in the middle of our own presentation.
Mm-hmm. That's
If
true.
they lose trust in you, they will get information from other sources who might promote unhealthy behaviors and activities. Like we know, the internet is a rabbit hole. Once you ask a question, they'll give you an answer, but you don't, you have to fact check. The kids don't check who's giving them the answer. It can be like alcohol retailers that pay Google to give those certain answers, or just give them misconceptions. So it's just better to hear from you so that you know that they're getting the right information.
And so this is a great app that SAMHSA has created for parents, to help learn how to talk to your kids about underage drinking. It's called Talk, They Hear You, and it's an app that you can download, available for any phone application. And it's a way to practice these conversations with your teen, because I know it's not easy. It's not easy to talk to our kids about these topics. And so try it out, and hopefully this will help also in your journey with conversations with your child. And speaking of this, it's important to note that having ongoing conversations with your children, not just a one time thing or once a year kind of conversation, but kind of ongoing, And you don't have to necessarily ask about drugs or alcohol, but asking about their friends, asking about you know, how what they're doing, what they're feeling, what they're believing, talking about different topics with them, you will get a better understanding of how your child is doing, even mentally, right? What their status is. And so all these things, having kind of those, daily conversations with them is really important, so that they come to you when difficult situations happen, right? It's not just that, you talk to them once in a while. And two, they feel comfortable in talking to you about various topics.
And if you have anyone that may be interested in it, it is offered also in Spanish for any Spanish speaking person you may know. And it does really lead you through case scenarios of if you ask this, what would be the reaction of the youth? So it really gives you some good pointers to use, or maybe some words not, what language maybe not to use, that may be misconstrued by the youth. So help is available. You're not alone. Help is available if your child is using substances or having behavior or mental health challenges that impede their well-being. Perform care is children's mobile response and stabilization services, the CMO, which is a care management organization.
So those two organizations are available in every county in New Jersey. It's a statewide initiative where parents can call to get services, to get help for their children. And the Children's Mobile Response, they would be able to come out to your home within an hour, which is great if you're having some kind of issue that you really want to talk you want to talk to a professional about. You want to get some support, right? And then they can connect you to some long-term or short-term therapy. And then if you need more than that, then they can connect you to the CMO, which provides long-term therapy and support services. They could help, put in different behavioral assistant, or even sometimes assistance with school and things like that. So this is a great resource if you have parents that don't know what's going on, or may need some more assistance. It's a great 1-800 number. It's free. It's completely free. It's provided by the state, and it's there to help children and parents navigate through sometimes the tricky pieces of mental health and behavioral challenges and substances. So if you need specific help, if you think for drugs or alcohol concerns, just remember you don't have to face it alone. Alcohol abuse begins to negatively impact a person's life and causes harm, and it can be diagnosed as alcohol use disorder. Recognizing the warning signs of alcohol abuse and getting proper treatment can make a significant difference in someone's recovery process. So we have here a few numbers that are from our state of New Jersey. If someone in your home has a drinking or substance use problem, they can call either the IME Addictions Access Center or Reach New Jersey. Both of these are 24/7 hotline numbers. And then there's also New Jersey Connect for Recovery and Peer Recovery Warm Line, which are available during the times that are listed on here. And these are great resources for people wanting to talk to a peer, someone that's going through this or has gone through this, or into a clinical or professional as well.
Need help with mental health concerns? If you or someone in your home feels angry, alone, anxious, depressed, or stressed, you can call the NJ Hope Line or the NJ Mental Health Cares, which is open 7 days a week as listed, and the NJ Hope Line is a 24/7 number that can be used at any time.
And we just want to stress that getting help for mental health, behavioral, or substance use issues is nothing to be ashamed about. Um, uh, we all have different stressors. We all have different issues that we may be facing, and there is a lot of help out there for help to help you in your journey. So we want to we understand sometimes that there's stigma attached to going to see a therapist, or having to admit to perhaps having an issue with substances or mental health issues. But we're here to say that everybody goes through different struggles at different points in their lives, and it's okay to get that help, and it's actually will help your child or yourself in the long run. Evelyn, do you want to take this one?
Okay, sure. So have answers to commonly asked questions. Why can't I use alcohol until the age until I'm 21 years old? Like Justin and I mentioned during the presentation, you know, the brain isn't fully developed until the age of 25, and research even shows even the age of 27. Also, like we mentioned in the presentation, you know, the longer you can wait to use alcohol, the better, because the earlier you start to use, the higher rate you may become addicted to alcohol. Can you get addicted even though you only use the drug or alcohol occasionally? Yes, especially if you may have any genetic dispositions or anyone in your family that has a history of abusing alcohol or drugs, it puts you more at risk for getting addicted or to use it more readily. What is an electronic smoking device like Juul? So Juul is a famous vaping product that came into the market that was advertised heavily to use and it was not marketed properly. It was told that it was harmless and it did not contain nicotine, and later it was found that it does contain nicotine, and it caused a lot of youth to need lung transplants and have breathing problems, etc., that are long term. Does marijuana use lead to use of other drugs? Jess, you want to take that one?
Yes. It's interesting. We just went to a recent conference, and basically any substance, whether it's alcohol, prescription drugs, marijuana, right, and even nicotine, can lead to the use of other substances, right? They had a study where they showed youth that did not use substances compared to youth that just used one substance, and the increase was significant. When they just used one substance, it led to the use of all the other substances. So yes, it can lead to that, but it's not the only one. It's not necessarily considered a gateway drug. And in fact, they say any substance can be a gateway drug, whether it's alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, prescription drugs, etc. Right? Why can't I use a prescription medication that is not prescribed to me? Because a doctor has to prescribe it based on your medical history, your weight, your height, right? There's so many different factors that go into prescribing medication. And so just because your friend or your family member is using a medication, and this applies to both youth and to adults, you should not be using a medication that has not been prescribed and that is not being monitored by your own physician. Can a person be too young to become addicted to alcohol or drugs? I think we've already answered that during this presentation. Of course not. A person can most definitely be addicted to alcohol and drugs, especially they're more so affected because of their developing brain. And last but not least, isn't Juul or other vape products safer than using cigarettes? As the vaping pandemic that happened in 2019 showed us that no, it's not safer. It contains nicotine and many other chemicals that are not supposed to be is not supposed to be inhaled and in your lungs. And so right now, we saw some short-term effects of youth being hospitalized, right? And some even dying from using vaping products. And so we don't even know the long-term effects of these products, but we already have seen significant results, right? Health effects and from youth. And now youth are becoming addicted to these products. They're addicted to these products and start using regular cigarettes, traditional cigarettes. And so, no, these products are not safer. So these are some questions that your youth may ask you, and this is why we bring these up, but by no means is this the the exhaustive list. We encourage you to use your own, do your own research, and because youth will have these questions, right? And you want to be as prepared as possible. But if you don't know an answer to something, it's okay to say, I don't know, let's look it up, let's find out some more. And then together you can learn the science behind some of this instead of saying to our kids, no, don't do this, explain to them the science behind it. Explain to them why it's not the healthier choice, right? Explain to them how these companies that sell alcohol, that sell tobacco, that sell marijuana, that sell all these different substances, how they're just out there to make money, right? Off of the dependency of others becoming addicted to these substances. So sometimes explaining it that way, it makes the youth understand, like, hey, I don't want to be controlled by by these marketing tactics and these big companies, right? So,
So lead by example. Don't serve alcohol to your children or their friends if they're under 21 years old. Moderate your consumption of alcohol, especially when you are around your children. Promote healthy alternatives to coping with life and building resiliency like exercise, yoga, meditation, open conversations, and become a member of ADAPT and advocate for policy and promulgating changes in your area to support substance use prevention.
so becoming a prevention partner with the ADAPT Coalition is a great way to help your community, to help the youth in the community. We have various committees, specifically for alcohol. We have our Underage Drinking Committee, and as well as we have our ADAPT Youth Coalition that also work on different projects and initiatives to reduce underage drinking in the community. You can also learn to make presentations in the community. And if you scan this QR code here, you can see all of our upcoming events that we have. We have regular meetings, we have trainings, we have webinars, we have a variety of different events available both for youth and adults.
So for our underage drinking committee initiatives, we have responsible beverage service trainings, which is we invite businesses that provide alcohol just to know the signs and symptoms of someone that is intoxicated, to understand the laws that affect them, like just mentioned in the past. We have the mandatory responsible beverage service training ordinance, the sticker shock campaigns. We actually do it with the youth. You can see a picture of youth that worked on us in the past, which is that they come out with us to the community and help educate liquor stores about not serving youth alcohol under the age of 21, and also being signs and symptoms of, if someone looks underage, making sure to check ID, start things like that, and also to remind, people that are adults to not buy alcohol to underage youth. We make public service announcements with our youth and presentations and workshops for youth and adults.
And there's opportunities for our youth to be youth leaders in the community. We have a youth tobacco prevention action group called Incorruptible Us. And during this group, youth will develop resiliency skills, expand their creativity on numerous campaigns, such as public service announcements and social media campaigns, as well as gaining valuable volunteer experience that they could put for their college applications and future employment as well. So to join, I'm gonna put you can go to, you can email me at jdelgado@familyconnectionsnj.org.
So if you want to connect with us and learn more about ADAPT and other events that we have, that's our Facebook, our Twitter, and our Instagrams. Feel free to reach out to us and our YouTube.
Yeah, so this recording will be placed on our YouTube channel so that you can see this one and any other webinar that we've done in the past as well.
So thank you for your time, and this is our contact information if you have any further questions about the presentation or any other questions.
All right. Thank you and good evening.